As we are getting closer to the end of the transfer window, big deals, big news, and big things are happening. Today, my friends, tons to get through, so I hope you guys enjoy. Tomorrow, I'll release the preview early afternoon, morning time, so stay tuned for that. Have those bell notification buttons on, hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions, and let's get straight into things. Let's start things off by discussing the feel-good story today, as Estevao Willian has been called up to the Brazil national team squad as they play their World Cup qualifying games in September. Now, he's made the massive jump up from being part of the under-17 Brazil national team squad to go straight into the first team, and that's for good reason, because currently Estevao is showcasing his immense potential and talent. And in Brazil, when they know you're a wonder kid, if they think you're special, they fast track you, they give you those opportunities. And I do think that this is incredible experience for him to pick up at a very young age, and there's a massive possibility that Estevao Willian will be part of that Brazil national team squad. Now, there was some controversy that surrounded him a few days back. He was involved in a very unfortunate incident where I think Palmeiras were playing against Sao Paulo, and Estevao Willian's foul against Sao Paulo player Patrick Lanza left Lanza unconscious. He fell straight on the ground. Obviously, Estevao didn't do this on purpose. Absolutely not. And he came out on social media to say afterwards, listen, there was no intent. I hope he's okay, and I give him my best wishes. Naturally, when you have the hype, when you're in the spotlight, when you're in the public eye, obviously people place a lot more expectations on you, but I do think that, seeing from the clips of how happy his whole family was with Estevao being announced for the national team squad, it seems like he has a very good family unit, which is important. They have very good values, and yeah, obviously happy for the kids, and looking forward to seeing what he does for Brazil next month. So that's that news out of the way. And now we discuss the breaking report this evening, as finally there has been a verbal agreement made between us and Napoli, with Napoli now set to pay 30 million euros plus 50 million euros in add-ons to complete the purchase of Lukaku. They've already agreed 3-year terms. Lukaku set to earn around 97k base fee, with additional bonuses and clauses included. Now, Damasio actually contradicts this report that came out from Fabrizio Romano by saying that it's more likely that this overall package to sell Lukaku will be around 30 million euros plus a sell-on clause. Now, sell-on clauses have been very popular with these recent deals we're doing. It does make some sense, and are we already foreseeing the future of Lukaku, where maybe he leaves Napoli in a year or two and goes to Saudi Arabia for decent money and we cash in on that? Time will tell, let's see. But in the meantime, I'm going to go with reports suggesting that there will be a 50 million add-on in this deal, because that then meets the terms in which we could sell Lukaku. He has a release clause of 37 million pounds. So we've been very adamant that we need the full amount of money. And negotiations really came to new light when it was revealed that we would entertain possibly structuring a deal over time to give Napoli, a better payment structure to pay us. So I'm okay with that. I think that satisfies all parties. And I think the most important thing is we take Lukaku some massive wages off our wage bill. And personally, I think he'll cook for Antonio Conte. I think for Lukaku at the current stage he's in right now, listen, last season at Roma was okay. It wasn't bad. It was a season that you turn towards to try and find your footing again. But I do think working under a coach that you're very familiar with, that got the very best out of you, that made you physically supreme, this is what he needs in his career right now. And Napoli have a long history of their strikers winning the top scorer of the year awards. You're looking at guys like Cavani, Higuain, Osimhen. So I do think that Lukaku is in a very illustrious group of strikers. So good luck to him, because as you guys have known for a long time, I personally have no qualms against him. Back during that whole Tuchel controversy, my opinion at the time wasn't very popular, and I still stand by it, but I kind of sympathize with Lukaku. Before he signed for us, he needed so many assurances before he left Inter Milan whilst being in his prime, and that's one of the main reasons why we paid him the biggest wages in our club's history to really persuade him to sign. So the fact that he signs for us and then he's not really promised what he thought was on offer, the system's not working his way, he's not being utilized the right way, I could understand why Lukaku would have maybe given up, being a bit annoyed, because he is a fan, he is a supporter since he was a kid, and I do think that He's tried to make it work here so many times, and I think in the end he decided, you know what, it wasn't meant to be. But now we focus on the other important part of this conversation. Now that Lukaku is set to go to Napoli, what does this mean for Osimhen? Because as we've known, Napoli were going to sign Lukaku before even considering selling Osimhen. And now that they've got their striker, they need to release Osimhen before this window closes, and there's literally like less than 8-9 days before the transfer window closes. We're learning right now that today we made, no efforts in negotiations with Napoli's sporting director to maybe strike a deal for Osimhen. Now, the sporting director has been in London to finalize deals with Billy Gilmour and today for Lukaku. So he's done some good work, but it does seem like we have a strategy in mind. We are playing the long game, and I'm gonna say this, if this window ends and we have captured Osimhen, in my opinion, only for me, you might think I'm being hyperbolic, but this could be one of the best transfer negotiations and strategies I've seen in a very long time. And that's because we've tried for Osimhen throughout the entirety of last season. There's been many conversations, many chats. He's known about our interest for a very long time, and we know that Osimhen has said yes to signing for us. The thing that stopped that deal was, number one, us missing out on Champions League football, and number two, Napoli were expecting some obscene money to sell Osimhen. It was never going to happen. When Paris Saint-Germain aren't even looking to broker a deal, when they've literally got infinite funds to strike any deal they want, it tells you that the interest for Osimhen wasn't as big as Napoli banked on. They originally wanted his full release clause paid out, and that was 130 million euros. Since then, they have dropped their asking price to 100 million euros. But no clubs have made any offers that come close to that. And now with time against them, now that they need to get Osimhen off their wage bill themselves, and now that they've signed Lukaku for Antonio Conte, it does seem like there is a big possibility that we can find the deal on our terms that we want for Osimhen. And currently, that seems to be a loan move. Now, we're learning that the player, of course, isn't really as excited by that, but we've been hearing that same thing for like the past 2-3 weeks that, listen, I'm sure by now in real time, I'm sure the situation's a bit different, because now Osimhen will have to think, on one hand, will we come back with a better opportunity and offer? I wouldn't rule out the possibility that maybe we try to make a permanent move for him, because it seems like other pieces are falling into place that's allowing us now to have maybe a bit more flexibility when it comes to matching Osimhen's wages, when it comes to finding the money needed to structure this type of deal. Players are finally getting sold. Players have accepted they're leaving the football club. Big earning players are finally set to leave us after all these years. How could you not think there won't be wage flexibility now? As I've said since the beginning of the summer window, I feel like our efforts for Osimhen will go right to the very end. We're going to delay things because we knew that the market wasn't as big for him as Napoli hoped. We're going to put out all these press reports showing our interest in other strikers. We look back at that interest and it was all half-assed attempts, with the infamous one being a more deal when in the final moments we tried to re-engineer the deal by only buying 50% of his economic rights. Let's not forget the reports that came out during the start of the summer where Maresca all of a sudden was against the idea of Osimhen. The club moved past him, hence why we turn our attentions on other strikers. That seems to have been all capped in my opinion. This was part of the play. This was part of the strategy. We control the narrative. We put out what we want people to think. I think that this whole time, Osimhen has been the number one, and Maresca said it himself in the press conference today when he revealed that, listen, I am happy with the forwards I have at my disposal, but if an opportunity comes for someone that upgrades us essentially, we should take that moment. We should take that opportunity. And I think Osimhen is that upgrade. And I feel like we are going for him because our massive key objective this season is securing Champions League football. And we're going to pay the money to make sure Osimhen's a guy to lead us back into the Champions League. So my friends, that is everything surrounding Lukaku, Osimhen, all that stuff. Share your thoughts and opinions. Do you feel confident? Do you think we can get this deal done? Let us know below. And now, my friends, we end things with club news and we start with Raheem Sterling because we've learned early this morning that Aston Villa have made an inquiry and approach over a potential move to sign Raheem Sterling. Now, as we've known, recently Sterling and his team have held concrete talks with the club over his future, and now he wants to leave the football club. He wants out too. He's not been training with the first team recently. He was admitted last minute on Friday for the game against Man City. So now we wait to see what opportunities come his way. The only stumbling blocks though with Aston Villa are the fact that Sterling's on 3 years. He's earning $325,000 a week, absolute madness. I think the reality simply is he'll have to take a massive wage cut because no club will be paying him that same amount of money. But I feel like throughout this summer we've done so much business with Aston Villa, of course, Kellyman, Maatsen. We came close, I guess, for John Duran. Aston Villa had an offer turned down of 57 million for Conor Gallagher because he did not want the move. And recently, they've tried to sign Lukaku and they were willing to pay his full release clause in one go to make that deal happen. So if they had that type of money for Lukaku, could we potentially accept the same money to sell Raheem Sterling? Now, interestingly today, Samuel Willian Jr., the player that was involved in the Douglas Luiz plus money deal where him and another Juve midfield player went to Aston Villa, with Douglas Luiz then going to Juventus. But we've learned today that Willian Jr. will now be going on loan to Bologna for the season. I don't think he's necessarily impressed Emery as much based on his lack of experience. And it makes a lot of sense why Unai would want a Raheem Sterling, as they need reinforcements, more experience out wide. They're going to be tackling league games and Champions League games. It's going to get a lot tougher and you need more experienced players to help you with that. So fingers crossed, something comes from this. And Sterling, Lukaku, and I'll discuss the next one later on, finally leave us. And I guess Clear Lake's master plan of dramatically reducing that wage bill finally gets completed. So that's the Sterling news out the way. Moving on to the other two stories. We are learning today that Tino Anjorin is probably set to sign for Empoli right now, as he's currently in talks over a permanent move. Hopefully we can structure a deal. I think this is a great opportunity for Tino. I really feel for this guy because injuries have been so unfortunate. And I'll give you guys some context behind his injuries. They aren't like reoccurring injuries to the same like knee or ACL or whatever. He had like a serious metatarsal injury. That was followed by a serious ankle injury. And then last season he had a serious hamstring injury. So his body, of course, hasn't been able to fully recover from like being out for a long time. I think that's why he can be prone to breaking down. But at the same time, a lot of these are like contact injuries. So it's not like he's just getting them in training sessions. I do think Empoli is a great opportunity for this guy because last season on loan at Portsmouth, even though he only played like 15 games because he suffered a hamstring injury, Portsmouth fans would say, this guy literally looks like a Premier League quality player. They were all in praise of him, and Portsmouth actually tried to make another attempt to sign Anjorin on loan again for this season. But obviously, I think Anjorin wants stability, playing top flight football in Serie A. You know, British players are very popular in that league now, and if you perform well, you can open up more career possibilities and opportunities. So I won't sleep on him. This guy has always been a massive talent, and hopefully this move to Empoli works out and he does his thing in Serie A. And for the final story, my friends, currently Bournemouth are in talks to try and sign Kepa on a permanent deal. Now for this permanent deal to go through, it will involve us offering Kepa a contract extension just to maintain some value, right? Because from January, he can sign pre-contract agreements and leave on a free. And listen, Clear Lake have said, no one's leaving us on a free. Listen, if you're not gonna sign extensions, then you're gonna be demoted. We're gonna make your life very tough. And I think Kepa right now just wants to play football. You know, last season, he had some decent moments at Real Madrid before losing his place to Lunin again. And then unfortunately, Lunin did not leave. And Real Madrid saw no need to go for Kepa. It's kind of crazy to think that he's one of the most expensive goalkeepers of all time, and he was purely a reaction buy because we flopped signing Alisson, with Liverpool stealing him from us essentially. And I might sound a bit rude, but I think Kepa is one of the most average goalkeepers I've ever seen play for us. And I'm even comparing that to like maybe those like B team, C team goalkeepers that would come through, do their thing for a bit. A famous example being like Hilario, when he was putting in some big games in the CL for us. And I just feel like Kepa's performances were worse than even guys like this. So yeah, hopefully we never make these types of transfer blunders again, but a lot of our big money buys aren't necessarily working out how we want. So yeah, like I said, he's a decent guy. Good luck to him, and hopefully he can reclaim and find himself again in the Premier League. So my friends, that is all the news and stories today. Share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about things? Are you optimistic now that the final big buy this summer may now be Victor Osimhen? I'd love to know your thoughts. My friends, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. See you all tomorrow with some more videos.